The Zarnath Empire believed no one would care. On a cold and distant moon, they captured 10 human scientists working in peace. These were not soldiers. They had no weapons. They were researching space and sending reports back to Earth. Without warning, the Zarnath entered the base. No questions were asked. No trial was given. In just a few minutes, the 10 humans were executed. A silent video of the act was recorded and sent through secret channels. The Zarnath thought they had erased the evidence. They believed the world would move on, but they were wrong. The video leaked. First, it reached one screen on Earth, then it spread. People saw the shadows of the 10 humans standing still just before the lights cut out. Their names were not known, but their loss was felt everywhere. Families who hadn't heard from their loved ones began to fear the worst. Scientists across Earth paused their work. Students cried in classrooms. Soldiers clenched their fists. What happened on that moon was more than a mistake, it was a warning, and Earth heard it. The Zarnath treated the deaths like nothing. They offered no reason, no apology, but they had underestimated something very old and very strong: human grief. On Earth, candles were lit in windows. Messages were left at space stations. Pictures of the unknown 10 were drawn, shared, remembered. A quiet storm was rising, not loud but deep. The Zarnath thought they could act in the shadows, but the galaxy was watching, and Earth was no longer silent. The 10 humans who were taken and killed on the moon base were not just names on a list. They were people with lives, families, dreams, and stories. Each one had someone who cared deeply for them, someone who would feel their loss in a very personal way. These were not forgotten strangers. These were sons, daughters, parents, friends, and heroes. When the video of their last moments began to spread across Earth, those who knew them began to speak up. Slowly, the world began to understand who had been taken. One of the victims was named Lena Imai. She was a space biologist who loved studying how small plants grew in places with no air. She believed that one day humans would grow food on Mars. She had a soft voice and always wore green, her favorite color. She had a younger brother back on Earth, a boy named Taro who looked up to her like a star in the sky. Their last video call had been filled with laughter. She promised to bring him a rock from the moon. That promise was now broken. Another was Jorge Baco, an engineer who had helped design the power system that kept the moon base warm during the long, cold nights. Jorge loved puzzles and music. He played the drums in college and once dreamed of joining a band. He ended up in space because he wanted to build things that could help others. Jorge had a wife named Amara, a teacher who taught small children how to read. They had 2 kids, both under 10. Amara had no words when she saw the news. She just held their children close and cried quietly into their hair. Keiko Shaw was the team's astronomer. She spent her nights looking at stars through a high-powered telescope. Keiko believed every star had a story. She made maps, charts, and wrote notes with great care. She once told her grandmother that the universe was like a poem waiting to be read. Back on Earth, her grandmother lit a candle in the window every night after she was gone. Her family placed one of her star maps on the wall, a reminder that Keiko's work would always point to something bigger than pain. Then there was Dr. Isaac Bennett, a medical expert who had spent years studying how the human body reacts to space. He was the oldest of the 10, known as Doc by his team. He always had a kind smile and carried a small notebook in his pocket. Isaac had helped many astronauts before and even saved a life once during a mission. He was never famous, but he was loved deeply. His daughter, Myra, had followed in his footsteps and was training to be a doctor. She found out about his death while at school. Her friends had to walk her home because she couldn't stop shaking. Selene Ortiz, a robotics specialist, had joined the Moon Project to test small helper bots. She made them clean, cook, and even tell jokes. She was always cheerful and filled with ideas. Selene was raised by her grandfather, a man who had built model rockets with her when she was little. When he saw her picture on the news, he sat in his workshop for hours, silent, holding her old rocket model in his hands. She had called him last week to say her robot had learned how to dance. Now the robot sat quiet, its programming unfinished. Raymai Patel was the youngest team member. He had just turned 26 and had been working as a data analyst. His job was to look at numbers and help others understand what they meant. Raymai had loved video games and spicy noodles. He had a twin sister named Rena, who had always cheered him on. They shared everything growing up, even birthdays, jokes, and their favorite books. When she heard what happened, Rena placed his favorite book on his empty bed and whispered, "I'll finish it for you." Maeve Thompson worked with chemicals and air systems. She made sure everyone could breathe safely inside the base. She loved baking cookies and used to mail recipes home to her niece. Her husband, Calvin, worked in a bakery and would always smile when customers asked about Maeve. She had a big laugh and used to tell funny stories over dinner calls. Now, their kitchen felt empty. Calvin didn't bake for days. Instead, he placed a framed picture of Maeve on the counter where she once sat, telling jokes with flour on her face. Tariq Al-Nasir had been the group's communication expert. He set up radio waves and helped connect the moon base with Earth. Tariq loved poetry and used to write short verses in the quiet of the night. His mother had collected his poems in a small red book. She had hoped to publish them someday. After he was gone, she read each page slowly, remembering his gentle heart. She lit a lantern each night, placing it near his book, hoping his words would still reach the stars. Zoe Becker, a systems designer, had created safety codes and warning alerts for the base. She believed that good systems saved lives. Zoe had lost her father young, so she knew how precious time was. She once said that every hour spent working on safety could be the hour that saved a friend. Her best friend, Sasha, had just spoken with her the day before the attack. They had planned a trip to a snowy mountain once Zoe's mission ended. After hearing the news, Sasha packed the trip bag anyway and kept it near the door. The last member of the team was Di-Hyun Kim, a historian who had joined the mission to document its stories and events. He believed that even small missions deserved to be remembered. He had written many journal entries, recording the daily life on the moon base. His parents were librarians and had always taught him to love books. After his death, those journals were found in the data logs. They were filled with hope, dreams, and stories about his team. People across Earth began reading them. Schools shared them with students. Artists made pictures based on his words. His dream of remembrance had come true, but not in the way he had hoped. Each of the 10 had left something behind: a voice message, a letter, a smile in someone's memory. Their loss was not just a moment of sadness. It was a deep wound that touched families, friends, cities, and even strangers. Their names were spoken with care, and their pictures were held in gentle hands. But their loss also reached farther. Some of them had powerful family members, leaders, experts, and creators, people who could do more than mourn. These were not quiet families. These were people with tools, with access, with knowledge. A brother who worked in the defense network, a mother who led space research, a cousin who built protective software. These were humans who had lost someone they loved and who had the power to do something about it. Earth did not forget. In homes, people placed pictures of the 10 near their doors. In schools, children wrote essays about their lives. On city walls, artists painted their faces, strong, bright, and proud. In space agencies, leaders read their names aloud. In churches, temples, and quiet parks, candles burned each night in their honor. Their stories were shared over and over again, growing louder with each retelling. Some humans worked in silence, remembering while coding new systems. Others gathered in groups, asking what could be done. Some prayed, some protested, some wept. But all of them felt the same thing: this was wrong. This was more than a tragedy. This was a message from the Zarnath, and now Earth had a message of its own. Even on other planets, people felt the weight of what had happened. Martian miners, space travelers, asteroid farmers, humans across the galaxy stopped and listened. These 10 were like them, not warriors, not soldiers, just people trying to build a better life beyond Earth. And they were taken just like that. In time, the names of the 10 were placed into a memorial called the Light Beyond, built on the edge of Earth's orbit. The station played soft music and slowly spun in space. A beam of light pointed to the stars. It carried the message. They lived with hope. We carry their light. But for some, that light also carried fire. Not rage for destruction, but a fire for justice. Quiet at first, careful, but deep. Something was shifting across Earth and beyond. Scientists, hackers, commanders, builders, they all remembered who those 10 were. They were not forgotten. They were not just victims. They were seeds planted in the heart of humanity, and something had begun to grow. The world did not shout. It did not scream. Instead, it became quiet. But inside that quiet, something powerful was moving. A spark had been lit, not of anger alone, but of careful action. The pain of the 10 humans who had been lost turned into a wave of silent decisions, and before long, small things began to happen. At first, no one connected the dots, but soon the pattern became clear. One morning, deep in space, a cargo ship belonging to the Zarnath Empire vanished. The ship had been carrying special supplies, fuel, parts, rare tools. It left one station and never arrived at the next. There were no signs of fire, no crash, no radio call for help. The ship was just gone. At first, the Zarnath laughed. Probably a storm, they said, maybe a mistake in the route. They did not worry, but they should have. 2 days later, a space station that helped Zarnath ships refuel suddenly shut down. It went dark without warning. The lights flickered, then silence. Every computer screen stopped working. Every tool failed. The workers had no choice but to evacuate. When a repair team arrived, they found something strange. Nothing was broken, but every control panel had been reset, every password changed, every camera turned off. Someone had been there, someone who knew what they were doing. Someone who had left quietly. Still, the Zarnath leaders did not take it seriously. A small problem, they said. It will pass. They blamed the humans for making weak machines. They smiled in their tall towers and drank sparkling drinks. They did not see the storm that was coming. On Earth, the quiet work continued. In basements, old garages, and secret rooms, people gathered, not to cry, not to scream, but to build. Some were engineers who once worked in space programs. Others were coders who knew how to enter systems without being seen. A few were former soldiers, trained in tactics. Many were family members of the 10 who had died. Some had lost friends. Others had simply seen the video and could not forget. They came from all places, cities, villages, islands, deserts. They didn't wear uniforms. They didn't carry flags. They called themselves Echo. Not because they shouted, but because their actions would be heard long after the sound was gone. Echo did not send warnings. They did not post threats. They simply started to move. A Zarnath trading post in orbit over a blue planet suddenly stopped sending reports. It had been busy with workers and ships just a day before. Now no one could reach them. A supply ship was sent to check. When it arrived, the crew found the station empty, food still on the tables, computers still warm. But every file had been erased. Every plan, every schedule, every deal, gone, like it had never existed. Still no blood was spilled. No bodies were found. Echo had been there, but they had left only silence. More small things happened. A satellite that helped the Zarnath track human movement stopped spinning. An energy pipe that powered a half-dozen warships turned cold. A transport hub full of weapons simply lost its code. Doors would not open. Alarms would not sound. And on every screen a single word appeared: remember. This was not just revenge. This was a message. The humans were not weak. They were not scared. They had not forgotten the 10 who were taken, and they were doing something about it. One of the first Echo teams was led by a woman named Dr. Liana Noor. She had once worked with Lena Imai, the space biologist. They had grown plants together in zero gravity. After Lena's death, Dr. Noor left her lab. For a month, no one saw her. Then she returned, not as a scientist, but as a strategist. She built a program that could enter Zarnath systems without leaving a trace. She taught others how to use it. That program later shut down 3 spaceports in one day. Another Echo member, Jonah Pell, had once been a student of Di-Hyun Kim, the historian. Di-Hyun had taught him how to see the past clearly and protect the truth. After the attack, Jonah created a secret library filled with files taken from Zarnath computers. These files showed lies, proof that the Zarnath had planned the moon killings long before. Jonah shared the files with journalists. People everywhere read them. Trust in the Zarnath began to break. There was also Nico Reyes, a space pilot whose cousin had served with Jorge Nbaco, the engineer. Nico had retired years ago after an injury, but when he heard what happened, he returned to the stars. He helped Echo fly past Zarnath borders without being seen. He flew low, under scanners, and dropped devices that blocked communication. He never fired a shot, but every flight he made slowed the Zarnath more. Even on planets far from Earth, Echo's touch was felt. In a mining colony run by the Zarnath, machines began to fail. Tools stopped working. Lights flickered. Workers whispered that the humans were coming. Some left their jobs. Others stayed but refused to send supplies. Fear was growing, not from loud explosions, but from the steady fall of control. By the time the Zarnath leaders noticed the pattern, it was too late. The damage had begun. They called meetings. They checked reports, but nothing made sense. Attacks had no fingerprints. Buildings were untouched but useless. Computers were not broken, just empty. It was like someone had pressed undo on their empire. Meanwhile, Earth remained silent on the outside. No public speeches, no flags raised, no demands, just quiet strength. Behind closed doors, more people joined Echo. They were teachers, builders, pilots, and planners, each one with a reason, each one with a name to remember, each one with a skill to use. And the revenge continued. A shipyard that made Zarnath warships suddenly lost power. Its designs were stolen, its maps scrambled. Engineers found drawings of flowers instead of weapons on their screens. In one control room, a small sticker was left behind. It showed a candle with 10 flames. The Zarnath Empire finally began to whisper in fear. They started guarding their files more closely. They doubled the watch at their stations, but it didn't help. The humans were already inside, not in body but in code, in systems, in ideas. And Echo was not stopping. They did not want war. They did not wish for fire. But they had one goal: to remind the galaxy that Earth was not to be harmed without answer, that the lives of 10 quiet workers meant something, that even if you silence 10 voices, 1,000 more will rise. In cities across Earth, people began to wear pins with 10 small stars. They spoke the names of the 10 in schools, in songs, and in morning prayers. In orbit, a hidden station broadcasted soft music, a song written by Raimi Patel's sister. It played every hour like a heartbeat. The Zarnath could not fight music. They could not erase a whisper. They could not catch an enemy they could not see. And Echo moved forward. They planted signals in enemy drones, turning them harmless. They filled airwaves with voices of the 10. They taught machines to play messages from Tariq al-Nasir's poems. They replaced weapon codes with stories written by Keiko Shaw. Little by little, the Zarnath systems became strange. Lights turned on at odd times. Doors refused to lock. Screens blinked with messages in human languages. "We are still here," one said. "We remember," said another. "You can't silence memory," said a third. All over the empire, fear was growing. But Echo was not afraid. They were not just fighting back. They were showing what it meant to be human, to love deeply, to mourn fully, and to act bravely. By the time the empire realized what was happening, it was already surrounded, not by ships, not by armies, but by truth, by courage, and by the steady hands of people who refused to forget. And the revenge, the small, quiet revenge, was just beginning. At first, the Zarnath Empire did not take the small problems seriously. One missing ship, a broken station, a few machines acting strange. To the leaders, these were nothing more than random errors or small acts of protest. They believed the humans were too weak to fight back. They thought Earth would stay quiet, hurt but silent. But they were wrong. Something bigger was happening, and one Zarnath commander started to see it. Her name was Commander Threxia. She had served the Empire for 30 years. She was not the highest in rank, but she was sharp. She studied patterns, watched movement, and trusted data more than speeches. When others laughed, she frowned. When they blamed accidents, she asked questions. Threxia sat in her cold, metal office aboard the warship Eye of Order. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the walls. A row of glowing screens showed her the Empire's maps, numbers, reports, and warnings. One by one, red dots appeared where things had gone wrong: lost ships, failed stations, broken supply lines. She blinked slowly. It didn't look random anymore. It looked like a net that was slowly closing. She clicked on one file, a fuel ship that vanished near the moon. No signal sent, no wreckage found. She clicked another, a research post near Mars that had gone dark. Again, no warning, no attack, just quiet. Then another report: a mining base on a far-off rock had been emptied. All systems were turned off by someone on the inside. No one saw them leave. Each case was small, but together it looked like a plan. Commander Threxia gathered the reports. She created a file and sent it to her superiors. She called it Silent Thread. In her message, she wrote, "These are not accidents. These are not random. Someone is doing this, and they are doing it well." Her superiors did not listen. High Commander Vernon replied with a short message: "Humans are grieving. Let them. Their tears cannot harm us." Threxia sighed. She had served under Vernon for years. She knew his pride would not let him see danger, but she could not ignore the signs. She studied the map again. The places attacked were not the biggest or the strongest, but they were important. They were quiet, behind the scenes. The kind of places you strike if you want to shake an empire without being seen. Even more troubling, no lives had been taken, no guns fired, no ships seen. Whoever was doing this didn't want war. They wanted control. They wanted to send a message. That made them harder to find and more dangerous. She ordered her crew to scan all messages coming from Earth. Most were normal: news, weather, music. But some signals were strange: short sounds, broken patterns, pieces of old songs, hidden codes. She had her tech team work day and night to find their meaning. One message kept repeating in the background of different frequencies: 10 remembered, millions awake. Commander Threxia didn't understand it at first, but then she looked at the names of the humans who had been killed. 10. 10 people. 10 lives. Could this all be about them? She asked her team to learn more. Who were these 10? What did they do? Who did they know? The answers were surprising. They were not generals, not leaders. They were builders, thinkers, helpers. One fixed engines. One studied plants. One cleaned space docks. Another wrote poems. But each had someone who cared. Someone who knew how to fight back, not with fire, but with thought. That's when Threxia felt it, a chill in her bones. This was not just revenge. This was personal, and it was growing. She went to the bridge of her ship and spoke to her officers. "We must watch Earth more closely," she said. Her second-in-command raised an eyebrow. "You think they're planning something?" "I think they already have," Threxia said, "and we're too proud to see it." That night she stayed awake, reading human messages. A story went viral on Earth about a starship that vanished. People cheered, not because they loved war, but because they felt justice. They were part of something. They believed they were standing together. Threxia knew belief was powerful, sometimes more than weapons. She watched Earth skis. She listened to their music. One song played again and again on human channels, a soft, slow tune with no words, just 10 notes repeating, peaceful but full of pain. Another report came in. A weapons factory had been locked down from the inside. All the codes had been replaced. The machines now printed fake tools, useless parts that looked real but did nothing. The engineers had no idea how it happened. Another random error, someone joked. Threxia did not laugh. She opened a call with High Commander Vernon. We need to change our approach. If we keep ignoring this, it will grow. Vernon shook his head. You see ghosts and shadows. No, I see a storm on a quiet sea, Threxia said. It looks calm, but it's building underneath. He ended the call without answering. Threxia turned back to her team. If the Empire won't prepare, we will. She ordered her crew to scan all trade routes. They found more signs, packages missing, shipments late, power spikes in unknown areas. Earth was moving, and it wasn't just humans on Earth. Echo had friends now on other planets, in free colonies, among traders who had once feared the Empire but now smelled weakness. And the fear was not only Threxia anymore. In a far-off trade city ruled by the Zarnath, shopkeepers started whispering. They spoke of lights blinking at strange hours, of screens that showed the 10 names at midnight, of machines that played soft human songs even when powered off. No one could stop it. A merchant in that city told his friend, "The humans are inside the walls." Another worker replied, "They're ghosts made of memory." Still, the Empire gave no real orders. It kept saying, "There is no war." But in secret, more commanders began to agree with Threxia. They began sharing her reports. They began marking locations as high risk. They started to worry that the humans were building something quiet, slow, but powerful. The fear grew day by day. And still Echo stayed silent. They did not come out into the open. They did not speak loudly. They just kept going, one file at a time, one signal at a time, one moment after another. Commander Threxia knew what was coming next. She stood on her deck and stared out at the stars. "They're not breaking our ships," she whispered. "They're breaking our peace." And she was right. The Empire was not under attack from above, but from within. And the Zarnath, proud and cold, had never feared silence. Until now. Far below the stars, in the blue and green cradle called Earth, the lights burned long after midnight. Inside tall buildings, underground bunkers, and quiet mountain rooms, humans gathered. They did not wear medals or bright uniforms. They did not shout orders or wave flags. These were not soldiers. They were thinkers, planners, and doers. Scientists with tired eyes. Engineers with worn hands. Leaders who had lost too much to stay quiet. They had come together because of what happened to the 10. Each one of the 10 had a name, each had a face, but even more, each had a story. And those stories had touched the hearts of people all over Earth. When the Zarnath Empire executed them without reason, Earth changed. The pain didn't turn into fear. It turned into focus. The leaders did not gather in front of cameras. They met in silence. Some flew in on quiet planes. Others came by small ships. A few walked, hidden under the cover of night. They entered through back doors and locked gates. No one clapped. No one cheered. It wasn't that kind of meeting. In a large, round room deep beneath a mountain, the humans sat at a table. The room was plain. No windows, no pictures, just screens, maps, and silence. At the head of the table sat Admiral Lion, a woman with sharp eyes and a quiet voice. Her son, Davin, had been one of the 10. He was a teacher who loved stars and poetry. The Empire took him without warning. She had not spoken much since, but now her words were calm and strong. "We are not here to cry," she said. "We are here to make sure this never happens again." Around her sat others. Dr. Emil, who had once worked on alien medicine, he lost his best student. Captain Harlow, whose sister vanished with the moon ship. Engineer Noor, whose husband was taken from the Mars base. They all had something in common. They had lost someone, and now they had found purpose. "We do not want war," said Dr. Emil, looking around the room. "But we cannot allow this to continue." "We won't march with guns," said Noor. "We'll move with ideas." From that moment on, the room filled with quiet action. Laptops opened, holograms glowed, fingers typed, pens scribbled. They started to build a plan. Not one plan, but many, each made to work alone or together. They called it Project Echo, named after the sound that never fades, the voice that comes back stronger. The first part of the plan was information. Humans needed to learn everything they could about the Zarnath systems, their ships, codes, trade routes, and energy lines. But they didn't send spies. They used what they already had: students, traders, and helpers who had once worked beside Zarnath officers. These were the quiet eyes. They sent small pieces of data hidden in pictures, songs, or even stories online. Next came connection. Earth reached out to other planets and colonies. Some were free, some still under the Empire's hand. Earth didn't beg, it offered respect. It shared tools, it listened. Slowly, quietly, allies formed. A miner on one moon fixed a signal dish. A pilot on a lonely station passed messages in trade boxes. A singer on a travel ship added secret words into her music. It grew bit by bit. The third part was skill. Humans needed to be ready, not to fight with guns, but to defend with control. That meant learning the enemy's systems. Hackers built training worlds. Children practiced breaking firewalls like puzzles. Mechanics taught each other how to repair and disable alien engines. Farmers even learned to grow silent crops to hide heat signatures from space scans. Every town, every city, began to train in quiet ways. They didn't build tanks or missiles. They built teams, groups who could work without being seen. A baker might carry a drive in his flour. A postwoman could carry a code inside her old letters. Nothing loud, nothing flashy, but everything smart. While the world kept spinning, the plan kept growing. In hidden schools, young people learned how to read signals in blinking lights. In remote labs, scientists built tools that didn't break systems, but confused them. Boxes that made ships think they were somewhere else. Machines that sent fake weather to hide real movement. And through it all, Admiral Lion watched. She never yelled, she never smiled. She just made sure things moved. One night, a young coder named Jessa asked her, "Why aren't we fighting back louder?" Lion looked at her. "Because noise fades, but quiet lasts." Earth's plan was never about rage. It was about memory, about patience, about never letting the Empire know exactly when or how things would change, just that they already had. The next part of Project Echo was even deeper. The team called it the Mirror. Its goal was simple: show the Zarnath what they looked like from the outside, not with speeches but with truth. A group of artists began to work. Painters drew the 10 in colors that glowed in the dark. Musicians wrote songs that only played 10 notes, each one for a life taken. Writers told stories in every language, and even in silence, using signs and shadows. They sent these works into space. Some reached Zarnath colonies. Others appeared in trade zones. At first, the Empire tried to block them, but like water, the art found cracks. One day, a Zarnath child in a far colony found a glowing cube. She opened it and saw the face of a human teacher, Davin, Lion's son, speaking gently about stars. She showed it to her mother, who showed it to a friend. Soon, that face was being watched by thousands. The mirror was not a weapon. It was a reflection, and the Empire began to see itself in it. Back on Earth, teams watched every movement from space. They tracked Zarnath trade ships, but not to attack them. Instead, they studied the timing, the routes, and the patterns. They began to send false codes, small changes that made ships go in circles or arrive days late. No one got hurt, but everything slowed. The Zarnath began to notice. Commander Threxia, who had warned her leaders, sent another report. Earth is not yelling, Earth is whispering, and the whisper is working. Still the high commanders laughed, but deep inside they wondered. Meanwhile, Earth built a final piece of the plan. It was called the thread. The thread was not a single tool. It was a system of systems, tiny connections between every part of Earth's plan, a hidden web woven by code and trust. It connected the old man fixing lights in a mining camp to the child in a classroom reading Zarnath news. It linked the poem of a mother to the device in a pilot's pocket. It was quiet, light, and strong. If the Empire ever struck again, Earth would not break. The thread would hold. And finally, the leaders of Project Echo sat down again. They looked at what they had built, not an army, but a network, not a fleet, but a voice. It was not ready to destroy. It was ready to defend. It was ready to remind the galaxy that humans might bend, but they do not vanish. Admiral Lion stood. "It's time," she said, "not to strike, but to prepare for when they do." And the room agreed. Outside, the stars still shone, the cities slept, the oceans moved. But in the quiet corners of Earth, a new kind of power had formed. Not loud, not cruel, but patient and sure. The kind of power that does not need to be seen to be felt. The kind of power that waits and watches. And when the time is right, it speaks. The stars were calm. The space around Earth seemed silent. Ships flew by. Signals blinked. But something was happening, something big, and no one in the galaxy could stop it. The people of Earth had made a promise, not just with words, with action. They would never let the Zarnath Empire hurt them again, and they didn't have to shout to be strong. Their power did not come from fire, it came from focus. It started with a small outpost. This place was on a cold, gray moon. It had guards, machines, and lights that never turned off. The Zarnath thought it was safe. They thought no one would touch it. But one morning the lights blinked. Then they went out. The screens froze. The guards stood up. They looked around. Nothing was broken, but nothing worked. No alarms went off. They waited for help, but help never came. The humans had turned off the power without setting foot inside. A week later, a trade station in deep space closed, not because of fire or bombs, but because nothing moved. The doors wouldn't open. The air got too cold. The maps showed the wrong paths. Traders turned around. Workers left in silence. Again, no one knew how it happened. The Zarnath leaders grew confused. They looked at the maps. They checked the logs. There were no ships nearby, no weapons seen, but places kept shutting down. One by one, Earth had begun to take control. They didn't use large ships or flashing guns. They used small teams, smart minds, quiet tools. On a planet called Kurova, the air traffic signals stopped working. Ships flew in the wrong direction. One almost crashed. The Zarnath blamed the weather, but there was no storm. It was a signal box, a small cube left in a toolbox. It told ships to fly in loops. No one got hurt, but people got scared. On another planet, a shipment of power cells arrived late. When the crates were opened, they were full of sand. The tracking numbers were perfect. The boxes looked the same, but inside, nothing useful. The humans didn't want to kill. They wanted to teach. They wanted the Empire to feel what Earth had felt: confusion, fear, and weakness, but without pain. The Zarnath Empire tried to act strong. They sent out messages. All systems normal. But inside, their leaders were worried, very worried. General Othmer, one of the top commanders, slammed his fist on the table. "Who is doing this?" he shouted. "Show me one face." But there were no faces, just quiet hands. Back on Earth, the plan was working. Teams checked in every day using small signals. Not words, not videos, just patterns, a blinking light, a short song, a sound only a bird could hear. This kept them safe. Each team had one job. Some blocked messages, others slowed machines, some confused drones. A few even walked through Zarnath cities placing stickers that looked like nothing but held codes inside. Even children helped. In one school, a group of students hacked a toy drone. They made it fly over a supply center and send back pictures. The pictures showed something strange: Zarnath guards sleeping at the wrong time. That small discovery helped Earth change its plan. Now they knew when to move. Farmers on Mars made a big move too. They used old farming machines to block Zarnath roads, not forever, just long enough. Food got stuck, water ran low, and no one knew why the roads wouldn't clear. Still, Earth said nothing. No press, no speeches, no big news. The silence was the message. A signal tower in deep space used to watch Earth turned dark one night. It didn't explode. It didn't burn, it just went quiet. The power switch had been flipped from the inside. A janitor, just a janitor, a human who had worked there for 2 years. He walked out and vanished, but the tower never turned back on. The humans were everywhere, but they didn't look like fighters. They looked like neighbors, friends, helpers. On one trade moon, a famous musician played songs every week. One day, during her song, the lights above the Zarnath meeting hall turned red. The music stopped. A new sound played, a voice of one of the 10. The voice said, "Do you see us now?" Then the lights went off. When they came back, the hall was empty. That message shook the Empire. The attacks were not really attacks. They were lessons. Each one said, "You are not safe and we are not weak." The Zarnath sent more guards. They asked more questions. They watched more people. But it didn't help. One worker erased an entire list of space routes by clicking 3 buttons. Another changed the price of fuel across 10 planets, making traders go home. A cook in a spaceport added a chip to the payment machine. That chip sent money to poor families on Earth. Each move was simple, but together they changed everything. People in the galaxy began to notice. "I heard Earth did that," said a pilot in a diner. "Earth, but they're so quiet." Yes, that's the scary part. Even in the Empire, some officers began to whisper. "Maybe we went too far," one said. "Maybe Earth is not like the others." A young Zarnath soldier, new to the job, asked his boss, "Why don't they just fight us?" The officer looked down. "Because they don't need to." That answer spread. More and more people understood Earth had power now, but not because of size or ships, because of skill, because of teamwork, because of heart. And still, no one could stop them. On a small moon where the Zarnath kept energy pods, every light turned blue. Blue was the color of peace on Earth, but here it meant something else: control. The system had been changed. All pods shut down for one day. No damage, just delay, but that delay cost millions. And Earth did not take the money. It just let the Empire feel loss. Some Zarnath leaders wanted revenge. They planned a trap, but others said, "What if the trap turns into a test and we fail again?" Back on Earth, the people did not celebrate. They stayed focused. In small rooms and busy labs, they tracked every move. They helped one another. They shared what they learned. If one person made a mistake, others fixed it. If one team was tired, another stepped in. There were no heroes, just humans working together. In a town on the edge of Alaska, a group of fishermen used their radio to block a Zarnath scan. They didn't know everything about space, but they knew waves, sounds, and tides. Their help was just as strong as any scientist's. No one was too small to help. No one was left out. And that's what made Earth strong. They didn't fight with hate. They moved with hope. They didn't destroy. They changed the rules. They didn't yell. They acted. And the galaxy watched. From far-off moons to deep star bases, whispers grew. "Earth has returned," they said, "but not to serve, to lead." Still, Earth said nothing. That silence, it was louder than any roar. Each move, each step, Each moment of control, it came from pain, but it gave strength. The 10 were gone, but not forgotten. Their names were now codes. Their stories were maps. Their memories built the mission. As Section 6 ends, the humans have shown who they are. Not victims, not conquerors, but something new. Something the galaxy has never seen before. And this was just the beginning. The Zarnath Empire was tired of losing control. They were angry, they were scared. Earth had not fired a single missile. Earth had not sent huge warships. But still, Earth was winning. The Zarnath could not understand how. So they made a plan, a trap. They wanted to stop the humans once and for all. Quiet attacks had shut down stations, changed prices, and blocked their power. But this time the Zarnath would fight back in their own way. Not with honesty, not with rules, but with lies. They picked a lonely part of space near an old mining moon. No one lived there now, but the Empire told everyone they were rebuilding it. They said it was just a science lab. In truth, it was bait. They made it look like the perfect target, just like the places humans had shut down before. The computers were left open. The guards were slow. The doors were left unlocked on purpose. The Zarnath wanted Earth to think it was another weak spot. But inside, hidden under the ground, were 3 warships, big ones. Their names were Dagger, Fury, and Watcher. Each had many weapons, fast engines, and cloaking shields. These ships had waited quietly for weeks. No one spoke about them. No one moved. They were told to wait for a sign. If any human ship or signal came near, the warships would rise and attack. Fast, loud, final. But Earth was not fooled. Far above that moon, something small was watching. A satellite no bigger than a football. It had no weapons. It made no sound. It was just listening. It had been floating there for 10 days. It saw everything. And it sent the message back home. On Earth, the leaders read the report. They knew it was a trap, but they didn't run away. They didn't turn back. Instead, they smiled. They had their own plan. One night, the lights on that moon flickered. Just for 1 second, the Zarnath guards looked up. "Is this it?" one asked. "Are they here?" But nothing happened. Everything stayed dark, quiet. Another day passed. Then slowly their clocks began to show the wrong time. Not hours off, just 1 minute, then 2, then 5. The computers thought it was still morning even when the sun had set. No one could explain why. Still, the warships waited. Another day passed, then 2. The guards started getting nervous. They checked every hallway. They listened for footsteps, but no one came. Then one night, Fury tried to start its engines. Nothing happened. The ship's captain yelled, "Check the power lines," but they were fine. Check the backup, still nothing. Dagger and Watcher tried too. Their screens blinked, then turned black. All 3 warships were dead. Not broken, not hit, just off. It was like someone had flipped a switch, but from where? The Zarnath had no answer. They ran to the control room. The big board that showed all systems now showed only one word. Inside. That was it. Just that word. Inside. Panic broke out. "What do they mean?" someone shouted. Who's inside? Guards ran through every room. They checked doors. They searched under tables, but they found no one. Still, the ships would not move. The doors would not open. The lights blinked red. Back on Earth, the teams were calm. They had never stepped foot on those ships. They didn't need to. Months before the trap was even made, Earth had already planted a gift. A tiny code. Inside one Zarnath supply ship, sent from a planet Earth had visited, was a broken toolbox. One of the tools had a chip. That chip had a code. The code waited. It watched. And when the time came, it acted. It shut everything down. No explosion, no lasers, no sound. Just silence. The trap had closed, but not on Earth. On the Empire. Zarnath leaders were shocked. How, they asked each other. How did they know? How did they stop us? But they knew the truth deep down. Earth had been watching them all along. The fake science moon now sat still in space, cold, powerless. The warships stayed buried under the surface like bugs that had lost their sting. Nothing moved. The humans didn't laugh. They didn't cheer. They just moved on. In the next few days, other small Zarnath systems stopped working. A fuel pump on a snowy outpost spilled red foam. A satellite near a gas cloud turned and faced Earth, as if looking for forgiveness. A supply ship got lost because its map turned blank. Each move showed the same message: we are ahead of you. The Zarnath leaders began to argue. Some said, attack Earth with full force. Others whispered, no, we'll lose more. A few just sat quietly thinking about the moon, the dark ships, the one word on the screen. Inside. It was not just a code. It was a warning. The humans were already in their systems, in their plans, in their future. One captain, older than most, said it best. They beat us before we even started. The trap had failed. The Zarnath had fallen into their own trick. And now fear grew not just in the leaders, but in the people. On a small world near the edge of the Empire, a group of children drew pictures. One drew a Zarnath warship with a big red X on it. Another drew Earth, green and blue, wearing a crown. Even the young now knew Earth was rising. But not with fire. With focus, with faith, with each other. The trap had been meant to break the humans. Instead, it proved they were stronger than ever. And they weren't done yet.